no idea. I feel like I know nothing, but I want to know more. I'm intrigued. I'm hoping my audience will also enjoy this. So, if I want to be a prepper, what are some of the first steps? Because my wife definitely has the food. You know what I mean? So, what are some of the first steps if you're going to be a prepper?
Well, I'd say even before jumping in, one of the first things to realize is prepping has a really bad name because we see the doomsday preppers, the shows on TV, and
Mm-hmm.
you think, oh my word, if I don't have an old missile silo converted to a bunker that will hold a small city and an acre farm, I'm not prepping. And the
Right.
reality is, we are all preppers, whether we mean to or not. So think about this way: when you're at work, you have a briefcase, a backpack, a bag that has things you need. Your purse, your pockets. A lot of us, if we live up north, you've got a snow kit. If you live near a coastal area, you have a hurricane kit. That is the essence of prepping. All we're saying is, what are some of the things that could go wrong? And should we prepare a little bit with a good plan and then some materials that'll help us through it? Like, everybody should have a first aid kit every place they are, even if it's just basic band-aids and Tylenol or painkiller or something like that. Everyone should have that. So you want to start by thinking, all right, what are those things that I'm worried about or might happen, and how can I be a little bit safer?
So, let's say someone wants to have some extra batteries.
Yep.
And are you open to taking questions? If you see people on the side here, if you have any questions about what we have, two topics.
Yep.
Number one, prepping. Number two, not necessarily in preference, zombies.
We could absolutely touch on zombies as well. And definitely,
Yes.
if you have questions or areas that you'd like to talk about, yeah, definitely pop them up in the chat and we're happy to talk about those.
Okay. So we already have people saying hello from all
Yep.
over the world. Thank you so much. This is a fun topic, a little lighter than what we were doing before, but it's a topic that I am super passionate about. And
Yep.
are you a person that's considering having your own garden?
I would love to have my own garden, but I'm not responsible enough. So I run my life a little bit busy, and so I've wanted to have a garden, but I just haven't invested the time in getting it set up or really finding the place for it. So that's one area that I personally fall short and have to substitute elsewhere. So one of the first things is, when you figure out what you want to be prepared for, then the second thing is, what duration. Do you have 3 days of water and food, stuff that you're willing to eat and drink in case the power goes off, there's an ice storm, you just don't want to leave the house, whatever it happens to be? And then how far do you want to extend it? I generally recommend building up slowly over time to maybe 3 weeks and then eventually 3 months. Now, why stop at 3 months? Honestly, I don't think any of us can afford prepping longer than that, because when you get into long-term prepping, you're now not just talking about adding a few little supplies every time you go to the store. You're now talking about major investments for water purification, for power,
Right.
for you know um, raw food materials, things like bulk flour, bulk sugar. And now you're looking at tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars if you want to have a zombie bunker. I'm not I just don't see the need for that. I figure if I'm prepared for several weeks, maybe
Mm-hmm.
several months, if things haven't gotten better where I am,
Mm-hmm.
at somewhere along there, I'm going to go to a place where the disaster doesn't exist. So I'm willing to take the risk that if I'm trapped, I will be able to get out and find help sometime during that 3 month period if I decide I can't stay where I'm at anymore. And that's personally where I've drawn my comfort zone.
What is a zombie bunker? My brain is going, what? Is that a real thing, or is that kind of like a joke?
It's more of a joke and a fun
Yeah.
goes back to the thought, if you can survive a zombie apocalypse, you can survive anything. So really, when you're talking about a zombie bunker, you're talking about, do I have a safe place where people and animals or zombies could
Mm,
we could prevent them from getting in.
yes.
We could live safely for a period of time. It
Right.
doesn't have to be underground. It just could be remote, meaning you don't have to have a perimeter defense or giant walls if nobody knows where your house is and they can't really find it. So if you're out in the middle of nowhere, that not being seen is one of the best defenses.
We have a funny comment here from Helen. Helen's a hoot. You can read that.
It's a bunker that has Helen, and she's already a zombie. Certainly, I know a lot of us have felt that way, especially over the last year, being trapped in one place and shambling through our houses aimlessly. That's about as close. I will say on the zombie thing, I love zombie fiction. I love the genre. I think it's entertaining. If you look at it biologically, zombies really can't exist, meaning the dead coming back to life. And the short version of that is in about 3 days, your tendons and ligaments start to decay, which
Right.
means a zombie wouldn't be able to move. So unless you step on one, you're pretty much safe. Now, in reality, what's the closest we might see to a zombie like plague? I'd
Yes.
say 28 days later, where there's some sort of a virus or disease which causes people to lose conscious thought and follow more of their attack, fight, eat. I think that would be the only way we would see something similar to that.
Right. So we're not going to see like a Will Smith type of film anytime soon.
Well, so the Will Smith, so if you take away the premise that, something created and turned everybody into, and in essence, if you go back to the original short story, I Am Legend, it's amazing. It's about vampires. And it's about how a person was surviving a world that has now been overrun by vampires. And it's a brilliant short story. So I recommend it highly. The Will Smith world, if we had let's say a pandemic or a natural disaster that
Yes.
really wiped out all or most of the population, then the rest of his story is absolutely accurate. We're going to see nothing in the cities. You might see people in rural areas. You'll probably, like they talk about where they flee to at the end, you'll see people banding together and setting up new safe havens, kind of like in the medieval days where you had a castle or a fort and that was your safe place to live. If we had something that wiped out most of the population, we would go back to that, but not because of zombies.
I want to address something that I've noticed even during our pandemic is that how quickly things deteriorate without maintenance, like buildings, lighting systems, windows being broken, things being boarded up. We're only talking a year. So imagine 10 years and there's no one around, how much decay, how much wildlife. Like that was one of the things I loved about that movie is he was chasing deer. I think it was in a Mustang.
Yes.
Right? Like,
Yep.
and how lonely he was and how he wanted to connect so desperately with his old life. So he was watching Shrek and he was watching old reruns of morning shows to feel like he was still part of something that no longer existed.
Yep. One of the big myths in prepping is the lone wolf scenario.
Right.
That one person with unlimited supplies can be fine. And you saw even in Will Smith's that didn't happen. He got hung up in a trap. But think about it this way. I've fallen down the stairs at home. Luckily, I only broke a couple of the balusters and had a really purple hip for a couple weeks. But if you think about it, what happens if you fall and trip and sprain your ankle or break a limb or get tetanus? Short term, a lone survivor can do all right. Long term, you've got to have a network of people that can help you. So it's not about supplies, it's about the community more than anything else.
So we do have some smart Alex in here who are saying this is the Business with Bathurst show. Yeah, I think zombies, vampires, and Will Smith and Shrek do not fit into that. Hi, Fraser. Good to see you. Also good to see Helen Good to see everybody in the room. And thank you. Listen, anybody who watches the rebroadcast of this, and I know you will, feel free to ask questions and we will get them in our pipeline, and we will make sure that if they're reasonable questions, we will answer them. One of the ones I want to ask, and I'm going to shift a little bit into more serious, is canned goods. We bought a whole bunch of canned goods. We got all this rice, we got stuff, and now we're juicing, and I'm doing mostly a live food. So my wife is going, I don't think we fully thought this through. So what are some of the items like Will Smith was going for, like salmon? Remember when he was going, salmon, tuna? Like he was very excited to see certain things. What if your prepper is a must have? Like give me like 10 items that you got to have.
Actually, it's simple. It comes down to two concepts.
Okay.
The first is only buy stuff you like to eat. There is nothing worse than being hungry or in a bad situation and having to eat. I hate canned green beans. I think they're mushy. I think they're horrible. I can't imagine having to eat those every day, especially if I bought a pallet of canned green beans. So look at what you like to eat and find something that will last longer, whether it's canned goods, whether it's freeze-dried, whether it's these packets. So for example, I love Indian food and Indian cuisine. And I found, personally for me, not endorsed or anything, but Tasty Bites has a series of individual serving in these food safe packages of pre-made Indian food. So I can dump it over rice, microwave it, and I'm good to go. So in 2 minutes, I have something that is very tasty, and those things have a shelf life of years. And right now, if I buy a box of 12 or 24, I'm paying about $2 to $4 per serving. So pretty reasonable compared to like an MRE or canned goods. So buy the food you like. Mm-hmm. And then the second thing is first in, first out. As you buy stuff, label it and or come up with a sorting. So I pull my canned goods forward, I put the new ones in the back of the shelf, and I eat that. That way I'm not eating the most fresh food, and suddenly I've got this can that's leaking and septic and looks nasty.
Yes, not very appetizing. The other thing I'm getting just intuitively is we should mention about best before.
Yes.
Because best before doesn't mean you can't eat it. It just means it won't be as flavorful. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Best by is the same thing. And then expired means they can't recommend that it will taste and look like it is supposed to, but that doesn't mean it's unhealthy. For canned goods, the simplest rule is if the can is leaking, if you see anything wrong with the can, throw it away and do not eat it. If there's any color, if there's any, not a dent, but if there's damage to the seal, same thing with canned goods, get rid of it. Don't even try and do it. Never eat anything that has mold unless you're sure. So for example, mold on cheese doesn't hurt us. It kind of affects the flavor, although blue cheese is literally mold in cheese.
It's mold, yeah.
We could eat it. Any amount of mold on bread or grains is toxic to us.
Right.
So the spores are toxic. So if you see a spot of mold, you can't really cut that off and save that piece or go to the next. You're better off throwing it away. And I know I hate doing that, but it's much safer. You have to know what foods, when they go bad, they go real bad.
The other thing I want to address too, and again, a intuitive part of me is saying dogs. So you must maybe have some food aside for them as well.
Yep.
Do you have a suggestion of maybe dog food that lasts longer, or would you get bagged or would you get canned?
So I would basically continue what we do today. I buy the big 40-pound sacks of high-quality dog food for ours. Personally, I use the Kirkland Premium lamb and rice recipe. Our dogs love it. It seems to last a long time. I've never had, bugs. Sometimes in dog treats, you get the pantry moths. Never had a problem with it. There's other name brands and good food, but I keep I hate going to the store, so I'll typically buy 4 to 6 bags at a time.
Yes.
When I get down to 2, I'll go and pick up 4 more, and then I just rotate them in the same way as canned goods. The other is with canned goods, I do keep dog food and canned goods on hand, but that's mainly if I have a dog that's not feeling well, having appetite issues. We have a couple that are real senior rescue pups, and I'm going to start augmenting their diet with a little bit of canned food because they really need that extra nutrition and fat. They're getting a little thin because they just don't eat as much. Not unhealthy, but so I want them to be trained on dry food, which stores longer. That way it's easier, and I can give them controlled people food in small doses if I had to supplement their diet.
So we're going to go in a different direction, which we do usually in our own conversations. I really am wondering, because you're very intuitive and you are very good at reading patterns. And part of the reason I wanted to do this show is some of the chaos that we've had going on in the world this last week. You were the first person I thought of, and I thought of all the lessons I had learned. And when I heard certain things on air, I was not as affected as I would have been because I had some form of knowledge. I'm trying to think of nice words to say during this. Nice words, Michael. Nice words.
Yes. And you've hit on an important part.
Yes.
One of the biggest problems when there's a disaster is figuring out what's true and how to react to it. So I have a presentation that I do on how to build emotional fitness to lead and succeed in difficult times. And one of the key lessons that I share there is we get caught in an echo chamber. The purpose of the news it's no longer to give us the facts for the most part. What it really is they're trying to get subscribers. They're trying to get viewership. They want to keep you locked in. That's why we see these silly meteorologists holding on to a stop sign. They look like they're waist deep in water when a hurricane hits. And then you see a couple people in flip-flops walking behind them and the water is just puddles because they want to create something that looks worse than it is because that's what sells. So separating out the fear and the chaos. With COVID, when it started, it's turned into the great 2020 toilet paper debacle. Why? Why did we run out of toilet paper? Why did people freak out? Oddly enough, there was a local news report that someone went to the store to see what people are stocking up on. And one person they interviewed said, well, I'm getting a little extra toilet paper because if they sell out, that's one thing that I never want to run out of because you always have to have good toilet paper on hand. That got picked up nationally, and people started saying, hey, could there be a toilet paper shortage? And the minute they said that, everyone heard toilet paper shortage and went out and started hoarding. And the difference between hoarding and prepping, if I buy toilet paper in advance, if I buy the big 24 pack ahead of time because I know I'm going to use it, that's prepping. If I think that everybody needs toilet paper and I buy it and they can't get it and I'm buying more than I need or need over that period of the disaster, that is hoarding, and hoarding is horrible. So luckily, I think stores are going to get better at limiting purchases during disasters, but separate out the fear and just spend a week with a notepad and write down everything you use in a week. And that's really what you should prepare for. I need toothpaste. I need the foods I like. I need toilet paper. I don't like blowing my nose with toilet paper, so I want to make sure I have tissue. I bought more tissue last time at the store, so I've got 6 boxes instead of 3.
We don't want you suffering.
No
suffering going on
this
here.
This nose needs tender care.
It does. It needs loving. So I want to switch gears again, if it's okay. What I want to discuss, and it's a weird one, but it's kind of in the same groove. I've noticed when I go in the stores now, the prices have gone up. If anybody agrees with that, press 1. If you disagree, press 2. The other thing I've noticed is the selection is maybe a fifth what it used to be.
Yes.
And now they're trying to make the store look full, and they just don't. They have all the shelf space and nothing to put on it. And the prices I'm finding have gone up in Canada 30%.
Yes.
Is that going to continue?
It's going to get worse.
Oh,
I
God.
believe it's going to get worse. And here's why.
Why?
When we think of supply and demand,
Mm-hmm.
we talked about the panic buying, and that depletes inventory before it can get stocked. And we saw that with PPE, we saw that with toilet paper, just cleaning supplies. The factories just couldn't make it. All right, let's set that aside. What happens when a lot of people are sick or a coworker tests positive and they're not allowed to work? I can't run the inventory. I can't run my production facilities at the same rate. I can't run my warehouses. I lose my logistics. Right now, the border between US and Canada is pretty locked down. So mail back and forth is taking about 6 weeks for letters to get across. So there's two big problems we're seeing in the stores now. One is the factories, because of limited production and limited workers, just aren't making as much. And we see a disruption in the supply chain where even if they're making it, we're not getting it to the warehouses and the stores because there's just not enough people who can drive the trucks or stock the shelves. And if you actually look in, I've been playing this game for the last couple months, you can actually kind of tell where the disruptions are coming from by the type of products that are running out. Like I noticed, I've been joking a lot because people were buying up flour, especially in Canada, because they're going on a harder lockdown.
Yeah.
We've had flour almost the entire time.
Yeah.
But this last 2 weeks, we've had almost no flour or wheat and grain products. That means there's a disruption in the Midwest. There's a disruption in that production, or a lot of that is going elsewhere where it's also needed. So for the first time since probably May or June, flour was sold out. Now, I bought flour when inventory went back to normal. This is kind of like buying stocks. You don't buy stocks when they're really, really high. You buy them when they're low. When stores were restocking and the prices were back to normal, that's when I said, okay, let me go ahead and buy 4 bags of all-purpose flour and 2 bags of bread flour, because if I can't get bread, I want to make it at home. And so I bought that when everything was fully stocked. So when I go in now, not only do I not have to worry about it, which is great, but I also don't have to take something away from somebody who might not have anything.
Someone brought up in here, and this is so true. There was a huge shortage of yeast.
Yes.
And they were selling bread makers right through the roof.
Yep.
So, and that's the thing, if we can address that as well, during these times, there is always opportunity. So if you can look at the patterns and find a way to be in the right place at the right time, there is opportunities to start a new business or just make a little profit. And I don't mean by gouging hand sanitizer that you bought for 57 cents or you know, the gloves or the mask. I've also noticed in Canada, we're not pushing as much as we once did washing your hands. It's now more wear the mask, social distancing. What has changed, do you think?
I think that's a mistake. And here's why. So let's think, we'll take this from a viral standpoint.
Okay.
Right now, the flu can live for a while on surfaces. We know this. COVID typically stays with water molecules, so coughs, sneezes, things like that. Our mask traps them on the outside. Here's the problem. If I snap my mask, I've just created a cloud of the virus because I've concentrated it on my mask. If I went through an area where someone who is infected had it, if I touch the mask, if I take it off and then I rub my eyes, I put my, anything that breaks your outer barrier in my mouth, my nose, something like that, I have now introduced the virus into my body. Now, if it's a little bit, we're probably going to be okay and it might not take hold. If I get a large concentration, like rubbing my mask and then sticking my finger in my eye, then you're really putting yourself at a much higher risk. So the washing and the hand sanitizer are critical. And there's a rule that my brother put in place for his household, and I love it, and I've been spreading it around. He said, treat everyone in public like they're a zombie. Keep enough distance if they're a slow zombie that you could get away from them. And then wash your hands like you've been eating chicken wings and you're about to put in contact lenses.
Wow.
If you follow those 2 rules, you're probably going to be okay even if you're exposed.
That sounds like a great t-shirt.
Yes.
and a lengthy poster. Um,
Yes.
so we wanted to keep this to 30 minutes, correct? So I want to ask you a couple other
Yep.
questions that are pertaining to it. We will probably do one of these, once a month, once a week, whatever you want.
Yep.
I'll come up with some other questions, but I could talk about this for 2 hours and I think they'd be all snoozing or laughing by the end of it. The other thing I've noticed during the prepping that we did, we bought, like you said, a bunch of stuff we probably will never need. So you got to be
Yep.
careful. Now, we did buy batteries. Do you recommend batteries?
I do. And I they're more expensive, but I have switched over exclusively to rechargeable batteries and lithium. And here's why. I last year, well, the year before, when I started, I tried to use a flashlight and it didn't start. And the alkaline batteries had corroded. So I lost not only the batteries, but I lost the flashlight. And then I started going through because I keep a cheap flashlight in every room of the house.
Right.
And I lost half of my flashlights because of battery corrosion.
Oh, and how
And
long? Okay, just one question. How
yep,
long does it take usually for you to have your flashlight go to that state?
usually, so if there's no moisture, it could be a year or a couple years. But what I found was I live in the South. I live in Atlanta. The
Mm-hmm.
humidity was enough that they got damp
Oh.
inside, and it can only take a week or two before the corrosion starts. And
Mm-hmm.
there's a little corrosion you could scrape off, but then it's there and it's going to affect your next batteries. So I put lithium batteries. I buy them using Amazon Subscribe and Save, or I wait for them to go on sale, and I put them in every electronic device. But the
Mm-hmm.
devices like remote controls or things that aren't critical, I use rechargeable batteries. That way I don't burn through the expense. Like I can't afford to keep swapping
Yeah.
out batteries, but the rechargeable ones in remotes, in a few of those things, because I can always go over and get new batteries. What happens if I don't have any batteries charged? I could throw in lithium for a minute.
Right.
And the lithium actually, I've never had a lithium, knock on wood, I've never had a lithium battery go bad.
That's interesting. Okay, so two more questions and we'll end it up. Is that okay with you? Because I don't want to get it.
Absolutely.
I find with these, and I think you agree with me, if you get too long, they're never going to be watched to the end. So, and I'm hoping
Yep.
to have where we stay within 30-35 minutes. Okay,
And Chris
so
is absolutely right about touching your face,
mhm.
jalapenos, and going into the
Yes,
bathroom.
yes.
Absolutely. Use that as the rule.
Wow, that again could be a wonderful T-shirt and a Bible study for sure, right there. Yeah. Chris is a bit of a smart, you know what, and but that's good. We need that. We need people that are playful and are having fun. Things like clothing. Is there certain types of clothing that you should have in case there's because people don't think about, hey, I have no power. Hey, I have no water.
Yep. For me, it's about comfort and not getting a rash. So if you're not able to wash, I would
Hmm.
say having enough clean underwear, and there's nothing worse than having sore feet or blisters. So
Right.
for me, good socks, and you know, I'm I'm more prone to rashes and stuff like that. So I have a lot of foot spray and
Yeah.
powder. So I always put that on with socks, and I make sure that there's enough of that. So comfortable clothing that fits what you're doing. So I'd say, other than the underwear and socks, it really isn't going to matter. But if you can't wash, you're probably going to want to have enough items that you could rotate through. And then if you were looking at more of a long term scenario or potentially having to hike to a safe area, I'm a big fan of, I hate to use the word, but if you search BDUs, B Bravo Delta uniform, or tactical pants, or the difference is they're like cargo pants, but they're not floppy. They're made from ripstop material, either nylon, cotton, or polyester. They're great for gardening and working because they're hard to tear. They protect you from thorns. You're not going to wear through the knees. They've got extra pockets so that you can
They
have
have
what you
extra
need.
pockets. Yes.
Those almost every day I wear them just because they're so comfortable. But
Hmm.
the other is denim was invented for people in mining and prospecting. So denim is very durable. Well, not necessarily fashion denim, but real denim is great because it lasts forever. It protects you. So I think those are good. And then, if you really want to know how to dress, look at anyone who's backpacking or camping because they
Yeah.
really have kept things efficient. So dress in layers. You don't need, and Michael, you're in Canada. Do you need one super giant Stay Puft Marshmallow Man parka? Or do you want to have some layers so you can take the jacket off depending on whether it's
Hmm.
30 below, 0, 30 above, Celsius or Fahrenheit? You want to be able to adjust.
Wow. That was a lot of different avenues of content there. We had a slight history of denim. That was good. See, and that's the thing I love with talking about you is you don't know what direction you're going to go in. So I always end my show with what are you grateful for? But I can't do that because we just had a show and did that. So why
We
don't
can
we
change
end?
our answers.
Yeah, why don't we discuss right now what's bringing you a sense of peace?
Uh, and I'll say being on the show with you because you and I have been talking for a while. And one of my personal goals, like, I can't do the conferences. I'm not speaking in as many events. And it's something that really brings me a lot of joy is sharing content like this. And I appreciate the support and how you've been poking me with a dull stick to get me on and doing this and now doing this regularly. So I really appreciate that, and I see
Mhm.
this as the start and finally actually stepping out and doing it and stop coming up with excuses or delays. So for me, getting this and starting it and seeing this as the beginning, I think is something I'm very happy and very proud of and looking forward to doing a lot more with you and some offshoots where I can
Oh
share
yeah,
some of the content that
yeah.
I haven't been able to because normally I speak at least one event per month, sometimes
Hmm.
two, and I just those venues just aren't there. So I'm missing out on that contact and looking forward to this.
Well, the great thing here too, and then we haven't really discussed this, and I always feel like we should, is HAPS has made a phenomenal platform for people who are creators who love to have content that is strong but funny. And you can talk about hot peppers for only so long. You have to have a little depth and a little denim. The denim is important, the history especially. But the one thing I do hope that people realize is that we will try in the future to have guests on as well that have maybe slightly different opinions. So there is a little bit of friction in these things, not just a bro fest. But
Yep.
this is the very first show on prepping and zombies. What a lovely combination! I'm hoping that we can do one at least once a month. And it also gives me time to come up with other questions, but I could be on here for hours. And I'm so grateful for you sharing your wisdom, which is so deep within this subject and so many for that matter. So if
Yep.
anybody has questions, we will check them if they are, not about hot peppers, but if they're about, real prepper concerns. I know that he'd be willing to address them in the next show or
Yep.
maybe just give you a 1 or 2 word answer. Thank you for being here today. I really appreciate everybody that was in the room. Anybody in the rebroadcast, please feel free to, again, I can't stress this enough, feel free to, send us an email. You can send an email to me at shoutmgb at gmail.com, or you can try to connect with me here. Thank you, Fran, for that. That was so nice of you. I really, really appreciate that. Do you know much about this format at all? Are you learning?
Learning, I think it's wonderful. It's great to see a platform and also how positive it is. Like we've talked about, don't feed the trolls. It's been great to see people who are aggregating towards the message, the content, and really, trying to make the world a little bit better place. So we appreciate.
I'm
We
not laughing
appreciate
at
it.
you. Look at this comment. Look at this
Yes.
comment. Read. You got to
Oh
read
no,
that before we go.
Chris was dead on, and actually, I think hot peppers or jalapenos is better than buffalo wings. That way, we also include the vegans.
We are equal opportunists here. Have a wonderful day. May you let the light of love shine in your direction. And thank you so much to the people who are in this broadcast and the people who will be in the broadcast in the future. God bless you all. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.